Hello, and welcome to another riveting episode of Camel Essentials. Today, we're going to talk about monitoring, which is just as exciting as all the other ones, I'll bet. So, this is a very important topic to me. I run into this all the time. How do we monitor or see what's going on in our system? And today, we're going to cover some of the options that Camel gives you. So, without further ado, let's get after it. Okay, let's go ahead and start off with a application that I created in one of the previous episodes. This one takes a file and then basically just runs through the route, splits it based on the carriage return, publishes it to a Kafka endpoint, and then it manipulates the payload a little bit before sending it off to a JDBC endpoint. So it gives us just enough to kind of say, like, okay, how do we want to monitor, or what do we want to see in the metrics of this process to make it useful from a monitoring standpoint? So let's take a look here. What would kind of be useful? Well, it'd be kind of nice to be able to see how many messages are going through the system. It'd be kind of nice to see how long it took, those kinds of metrics. So if we start off and we just take it as is, we didn't add anything new to it. This is literally just starting it up. So this is what we get out of the box. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the application. We should see it pick up the file like we did just there. Okay, so we've got it laid out now. The file ran. We should have something in there, right? Here. JConsole. And let's see what we get when we start up. So let me move that into the screen. We'll size it a little better. So what we can see is this is our application. It's running right now. You can tell the profile is default. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can. I'm going to have to create, it doesn't size well. JConsole isn't the best of applications to be using, but it's at least a start. So let's take a look. Insecure connection. All right, so we go out here and we look at mbeans. Nothing's really here. The Kafka producer's there, but it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. So what we probably need to do is go out here and add something to our program. So let's close this back down. That shuts that off, and let's just go back to our application. So more than likely what we need to do is let's add the context for the JMX. So first thing we're going to need to do is let's pull in a new dependency, because I'm pretty sure we need a dependency on the Camel Management. So let's do this, and let's do Camel Management Starter. There we go. And we're going to do it from Spring Boot. And the version is 320.5, which is the same thing we've been using for all of our others. So there we go. So we got the Management Starter in here. We're probably going to need a little more than that. What we're also going to need is an application properties. And here I have to unfortunately look this one up. I don't know it by heart. But what we have is a spring.jmx.enabled, and we want to set that to true. All right, so that should be give us enough. So let's go ahead and rerun it. Let's shut this one down. Control C, and let's now rerun the application. Let's see what we get. I'm fairly confident that we're going to go ahead and we ran some things through it. Let's go and now take a look at JConsole. Let's bring that back over here so everybody can see it. I have to select the main, and let's connect, and let me resize it once we get it up here. All right, so we got that. Now we can see it fully. Great. Now let's take a look at the mbeans. And look at that. We have what we need. Perfect. So now if we come in here, we can now see things like, we can start at the top level. This is our routes. So we can see the pizza order file. Not that one. We need that guy. So what we have now is the pizza router and the pizza order file route. So we come back here, pizza order file route. This is what we're looking for. And we can see basic attributes here. So at this point, you can see that it's picked up one file, which at this point is a single exchange. But if you remember, it actually split the file up. So this just kind of tells us at the file attribute processing endpoint, we have one exchange being created from the file. So that was the one file we added there. And we also took about 398 milliseconds to process that file. Okay, nothing, it's not screaming, but it gives us some metrics to start looking at. The other thing we probably want to see is, let's take a look at some of the processors, right? We want to see how long it took to get through some of these things. So process 1, we can name these so that they're easier to follow. Process 1, since it's simple, for the time being, this is the one that I think we're most interested in. And at this point you can see, oh, look at that, we have 9. So the 9 that came in are the ones that got split up. Each individual record within the file was split into its own exchange and got processed and pushed through each of these processors. So we got 9 of them. And we can kind of see some of the like max processing time, mean processing time, things like that. So very useful stuff. Great from a standpoint of being able to see what's going on within the system. And you can see this at every single endpoint. So we can get metrics from every endpoint. There's a log that took one of them. Here's another log that is one. Let's take a look at this one. See, in this one, these are log statements that are inside the split. So when it starts breaking up the file. So we can see things from almost any vantage point, right? So on the split, we have the one file coming in, and these are going to be individual ones. So let's see, that's the 9, and this is the Kafka one. So we can see here it gives us the destination. It tells us what the URL is. And there's a lot of information in here that really can be helpful. Most of the time, what you're probably interested in is how long does it take to run individual messages through the system. And this breaks it down so that when you start adding in things like, let's say DynaTrace, you can utilize the mbeans to now give you a much better overview of how your system is running. So we'll also take a look at one of the other applications that is provided by Camel, not by Camel out of the box, but was developed as part of the Camel framework, which is HawtIO. We'll take a look at that here next, because that gives you a little bit more of a graphical interface too, kind of shows you the layout. Might be a little more interesting, and it's all web-based, so you don't have to have access to the JConsole on the system to be able to utilize it. All right, so now that we have the monitoring kind of set up, we've got JMX ready to go. We were able to demonstrate that you can get to it. You can see the different statistics and metrics that you can get to out of the Camel route versus the processors, see the number of exchanges, things like that, right? So with that available now, there are multiple things you can do with it. So now you can tie it into DynaTrace. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something free because I like free. And since I'm an open source guy, free is good. So with that, let's go ahead and we're going to have to add in some of the dependencies for the HawtIO itself. So I am just going to grab a couple of things here just because I don't feel like typing it all out. We need some dependencies. So these dependencies will look like this. And what we're looking at here, let me give me some more real estate here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling in the management starter for Camel. This is the HawtIO's first Spring Boot. And then you got a couple dependencies from Spring Boot in order to wire everything up. So you've got the starter web and the actuator. One of the other things I guess I want to just point out too, I have added this so that I can specify the version of Spring that we're using, Spring Boot. Mostly because as you start getting into these other dependencies, you could get into a version nightmare. So just to point that out so that you understand that that is something that I have added to kind of force a version in there. So now that I have that, what I also need to do is add some of the application pieces in here. So what I did is I went ahead and added in the web exposure. I told it what port I'm going to use, the management port. I've enabled the JMX, which was in here previously, and then I'm turning off the authentication. This can be turned on and then managed so that you have the ability now to kind of lock down the UI. So this makes some of these things available to somebody who's trying to monitor it, because a lot of times when you're deploying applications, you're not going to have access to the JConsole on the box itself. So this is another way to be able to lock down an interface. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and just take a look, and I'm going to shut this thing down. Let's do that. It's clear. So there we go. So we're starting fresh. I am just going to go ahead and clean install. And hopefully this will work. Okay, we got a fresh build. Let's go ahead and run it. Hopefully this will start up without any problem. All right, start up. You can see it grabbed the file and ran through some of the records. So let's go ahead and take a look and see. I'm going to pull this over So this is the UI for HawtIO. So again, here we can see these are the endpoints that it's talking about, similar to the JConsole, right? So we can see the route, boom, click on that. One of the things, I don't know if I have, oh, there we go. You can actually see the route diagram. It's nothing too fancy here, but you can see some of the statistics. It's a little clunky, but it works. The main thing here that I wanted to point out is that you do have all of the main statistics from JMX, total exchanges. In this case, this is 1. Over here, you can see there's a file endpoint. So again, attributes, some of the main pieces of that. These are just the endpoints themselves, so you don't get to see much there from a component level. And then JDBC, some of the attributes. The main piece is going to be the mbeans. So again, you'll see these similar to what you saw on JConsole. So if we go and take a look at the processors, process 1 here, you got the exchanges complete 9. Startup time, max processing time, in this case, it's 7 milliseconds for this last run. Again, just to give you some context of what you can do with some of this. So again, split. There was 1 coming in, and then that actually gets pushed out and broken down into multiple exchanges. So here we have 9. This is the Kafka endpoint. It kind of tells you what each one is called. You get a lot of information here, and the nice thing is that this is accessible without having to have direct access to the box if you just lock it all down. So it comes in handy. It's definitely a useful tool. Does it replace something like DynaTrace? By no means, but because these are mbeans, you can turn on like one agent or whatever within DynaTrace and connect this all up, and then you'll get these same statistics through DynaTrace or your monitoring tool of choice. As long as it supports mbeans, you're good to go. So that kind of sums it up. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.